Hello, one and all. Welcome back to another episode of Prose Notes, a graduate writing podcast. We're back in 2026. It's almost the end of January after hopefully a restful break and a chaotic fall semester. My name is Samantha Demerly. I'm the student program manager for graduate writing and support, and I'm joined again with Aadi Sharma. Aadi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well today. I'm excited for this podcast for episode 2.
Whoa! Episode 2. Did you do anything fun over break?
I guess for every person living in America, one good thing is when you get a car, it changes everything.
It does change everything.
And I got a car.
Oh, how do you feel about your brand new car?
I feel that there's a lot more freedom.
Oof.
Driving is really fun. The act of driving and getting me to places has been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've unlocked new areas of Lawrence?
Absolutely. And even like small things like supermarkets.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, being able to go to Aldi instead of Hy-Vee has been a blessing.
Absolutely. Aldi is like one of those grocery stores that I always hear people talk about, and then I've only been there a couple of times, but I'm like, oh, I want to go to Aldi's.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Well, other than the car, anything interesting, fun you did over break?
I guess I got together with friends and went to barbecue B-dubs for New Year's. We watched a college football game.
Oh, nice. Which one?
I think it was the Miami game.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Miami won. It was really great food and getting people together. They were back from their Christmas break, and I'd just gotten my vehicle. I showed it to them. We kind of drove around and then, went to the restaurant and had fun. And, it's my first winter in Kansas, and I just started my PhD. Normally in winter break, I would travel to, like, Texas to see my uncle or, my parents would fly into the States and visit me and stuff. But this time, it was different. I was more independent. I took time to myself.
Nice.
So,
there's value in that.
Yeah, a lot of value. Very meditative.
Oh, good. Good to hear. I also I traveled a little bit. I went to Florida, so another hot part of the U.S., but I was trying to spend a little bit more time for myself as well, because I get very stressed during traveling, but we're back. We're back in Lawrence. It feels good. I love Lawrence. And I'm glad that you're exploring more of it now that you have unlocked the vehicular momentum. But yeah, you ready to get started? Jump into this episode?
I'm absolutely ready. All
right. So our dear listeners, today we are going to talk about what it's like being a graduate writing consultant at KU. Our hope for this episode is to give you kind of a better understanding of how writing consultants can spark creativity in their consultees as well as in each other and themselves, but really just like a kind of peek behind the scenes of who we are, how we hire, how we train, and really what it's kind of like to work at the Center for Learning and Writing Support.
There's a lot to think about when working as a graduate writing consultant. I am a graduate writing consultant. I finished my first semester of being a graduate writing consultant in Kansas University, and it was a heck of an experience. We in a normal day, we deal with students from different backgrounds and academic disciplines and conduct different types of consultations, such as an in-person consultation or a virtual consultation or e-tutoring edits where students of the university can submit their projects and essays online, and we get them and we make a revision, an honest revision, and send it back to them on a weekly basis. And we also have an active participation, a whole life behind the scenes, where we're working on multiple projects and being part of a wonderful culture of what we know as the Kansas University Wingspan employees.
For today, we're going to kind of break down working at the center in 3 different ways. So we're going to talk about hiring. We're going to talk about what that looks like. We're then going to get into some of the training expectations, kind of what consultants are trained on, how that training continues throughout the semester. And then we'll talk a little bit more about like the day-to-day working, what it's like to be at the center, what kind of expectations, what some of those consultations look like and feel like from a writing consultant perspective. So we'll start with hiring.
Right.
You were hired recently,
Yeah.
within, the last year or so. Let's just kind of start with what your experience applying and kind of even like, how did you find this role? I never asked you that.
Yeah, so I was in a university in Arkansas before this, and I was actually working in a writing lab
yeah.
over there too. But when I was back there, I thought to myself, if I'm going to apply to a PhD, and normally in a PhD process, for those of you who know the PhD application process, sometimes funding is just not available.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you have to, play it smart, do more research, and go out there and see what's available for you. And one day when I was just browsing the really organized job listing page of University of Kansas, I started seeing these availability and positions of the academic center and the writing center. And then I thought to myself, okay, instead of trying to maybe go and work for housing or maybe go and work in the library, what is this? And then I explored it. But at the start, the Kansas University Wingspan, our writing center, it's so vast and it has such different opportunities for people to work. You can work as a tutor, you can work as a multilingual tutor, you can work as a consultant, you can be an advisor, and like there's so many different things. I was actually a little confused. Like, is this the same thing that I do in my university in Arkansas? And then that's when I started realizing that this is actually such a good opportunity, and it's a bigger writing center. It has more people, and then I came across the job applications page, and I think I just had to put in my CV and a little bit of information about me. And if I remember correctly, you got back to me pretty fast.
I was hiring.
Yeah. And then, we booked a interview. And this was such a perfect time for me because this was the last university that I'd applied to. If this wasn't it, I was going to other places, and some of those places I didn't want to actually go.
Yeah.
And Kansas came up and everything was so positive, and we did our interview, and you asked some pretty solid questions, which I hope I answered properly.
Obviously, since you are now here sitting in the booth with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I do remember just kind of like, one, how quickly we connected, and I think how clearly excited you were to continue. Like, I am often very excited when I see folks apply who have any kind of writing center background, because it's actually more rare than you would think that, like, when we get students applying for these positions, and like, I think this is totally fair. Like, it makes a lot of sense why you would, be interested, but it's usually students who are like, oh, I like editing my friends' papers. And they don't have like the formal training. They don't have like a formal center background, which is totally fine. We're happy to like work with them and train them on that. But it was exciting for me to be like, oh, he works at a writing center. He knows. Yeah. But yeah, you kind of spoke to this, but we do have two types of positions at least the graduate level. So we have the GA positions, which this is a newer structure for us. And I'm very happy that we've received the funding from Academic Success and the kind of, the commitment from KU administrators to like make these positions possible. But we have 7 GA positions, and then we still hire hourly graduate consultants as well. So there are kind of two ways that you can work at the center, depending on, what kind of needs you have financially, kind of time-wise as a graduate consultant. And then, we require a cover letter. I usually ask for a writing sample, but the majority of the hiring is kind of an interview. I want to talk to you. I want to get a sense of who you are as a person, how you work with students, what you care about, and kind of how you connect with writing in the various ways that people do. I am actually thinking, and I just have a note about this in our script, but like, I'm actually thinking about changing the interview a little bit in the future to involve, and actually I can get your input on this right now, but I'm thinking about doing almost like a mock consultation. So like, in the interview, to just kind of see how you might approach working with a piece of writing, working with like I guess, a fake student me. But I think that that's something that I want to work in to our interview process, because a lot of the work we do is connecting with people. So I kind of want to see, like, if I were to role play a student, how would you connect with that fake student me? Does that sound like a good idea?
I think that sounds like a fantastic idea.
Cool.
It gives a really good mock image and understanding of what that incoming student is capable of, and what are some adversities he or she can face.
Yeah.
What are some skills, direct skills and communication skills they can show.
Yeah.
And it just makes the whole process a little more, I think it adds a little more prestige to it too.
Whoa, thank you.
Because you hear all these other like job interviews for computer science or this or that saying, oh, they have exams and they have to talk about this and that. So this is just our way of testing potential incoming talent.
Yeah, I like that. And I will have to be, I will have to think about how I'm like assessing those mock consultations. But I'm glad to hear that it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of the hiring process, like we're really looking for students who can collaborate, who are positive, and who are adaptable to a lot of different types of students. Because as we discuss pretty regularly, like you work with everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah. Were there any aspects of the interview or like getting you onboarded that you kind of remember or, that were kind of note for you?
Well, I mean, as we talked about, the interview process was definitely a memorable thing for me. I felt as if it went so smoothly. I don't know if that's the case for everyone when that happens, when they get hired to a writing center. But I was pretty confident coming off of working in a writing center for these long hours and doing a lot of e-tutoring consultations and in-person consultations. But what stood out to me at the start of last semester was our staff training that we had, the in-person staff training, where it was a detailed revision and training of what to expect in a writing center environment in Kansas University and how to act accordingly to different students and what we can do as consultants and GAs and people in charge of helping others, what we can do specifically to make the consultations as efficient and as helpful and as soothing of an experience for the student.
Yeah, we really, I think, the hiring process is obviously a great opportunity to kind of see the potential of the student, to get a sense of how they can work. But I find that, there are so few people that come into our center who are already experts. And so I feel like our training process is designed to really introduce consultants and to introduce all of our staff to the foundational expectations for student support, and especially on kind of the writing side of things, like writing center pedagogy. I think it's often kind of it's a point that people forget that writing centers actually have their kind of own scholarship and their own pedagogy and like a particular way of working with students and working with writing that's a little bit different than, say, a rhetoric and composition program, which like there's a lot of overlap. So I'm not saying they're totally like unconnected from each other, but writing center philosophy, writing center pedagogy is a particular way of working with students. So we try to make sure that we're introducing that theory, that methodology, and that we are, like you mentioned, teaching our consultants how to work with all types of students. So can you talk to me a little bit about what is it about training that changed your practice from what you did at Arkansas to here?
I think having training like this and welcoming incoming graduates who are going to be employees and working there first of all, it builds connection and it builds culture. And when people feel welcome, that's when they start showing their talents.
Yeah.
And for me, like everything mattered, from going into the conference room and having all the graduates together where we were brainstorming and listening to the director talk to us about the potential year coming up, to having these little workshops and case scenario groups. And like one of my favorite things that I did last semester when I was new was shadowing, where observing another an older graduate student who's already worked there, observing them in action. How do they handle consultations? And coming fresh off of staff training and observing that really made me comfortable and understand what the atmosphere and the environment is like, and what are some of the challenges and adversity a consultant can face during a consultation.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You're absolutely right that, I think one of the best training structures we have is really, it doesn't always feel like training, but it is just the doing. It's the observing of consultants in action, making sure that, yes, we can give you all of this information. We can tell you like what to say or how to say it, but nothing helps you understand the kind of flexibility or the adaptability of a consultation than just watching people people work. And I do want to remind you that soon you will be the senior consultant.
I will.
Who
exciting times.
Our newbies. Granted, we don't have any new consultants on staff this semester, but we'll be hiring for next fall. I should say that out loud. So if you're a listener, if you're a longtime listener, and you're like, oh wow, I would love to work on this team. 1, thank you. 2, please apply, because we'll be hiring. I will be opening up that portal like probably late March, and we'll be hiring for fall 2026.
That's awesome. I cannot wait to welcome new people.
Aadi's going to train you.
Well, actually, I already got some experience for this winter break when I got to present with my dear peer friend Anna, who's also a graduate writing consultant. Shout out to her. Awesome person. We presented together about what it's like to use questioning as a tool in a consultation.
And you guys did a great job. That
Thank
was
you so much.
really, really good presentation, really good training. But yeah, we know that the work that we do with students is we're lifelong learners. We're constantly kind of adapting our training to the needs of KU students. We're making sure that you as consultants feel comfortable with like things as they change, as they grow. We've been talking a lot about AI in the center. We've been talking a lot about working with different types of students, kind of dealing with some different difficult conversations. But like we know that training has to change and adapt every single year. So we're really conscientious of making sure that those changes happen and that we're intentional with how consultants are getting that information and then hopefully kind of putting it into practice. Do you find that there are particular like concepts or ideas that you use more in consultations than others? I guess like, for example, maybe the questioning presentation you just put on.
Yes, I think majority of the time I have one way of dealing with the student in hand, the person who is in front of me, like my audience, my student.
Yeah.
I have my natural way of showing my confidence and comforting my student to let them know that I'm here to help them out. I'm here to guide them. I'm here to answer the questions that they're stuck with. But that it doesn't necessarily always go like that, because the student body of Kansas University, the great student body of undergraduate and graduate students, there are different personalities, and people at random times of the day come in with a different energy level, a different expectation, a different and definitely different projects. So I have to tailor myself to meet all these different types of projects. And some of them, and I talk about this so much with my other graduate writing consultant friends, demonstrating familiarity with multiple genres of writing is really important. And some of the things that just come to my mind when I think about last semester and all the work that we did in the Writing Center, things like argumentative essays comes to mind, things like personal statements comes to mind.
Yeah.
Shout out to the nursing department for sending so many students to us.
So
we
many.
are here for you.
We love the nursing students. They keep us employed now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you spoke to this, like the flexibility kind of necessary, and I feel like that's part of when I'm thinking about training, when I'm thinking about what consultants need. Yes, there are always going to be content-related topics that we can discuss. We talked about working with dissertation writers for the spring, but there's always that underlying kind of goal for training that we are being adaptable, and we are taking whatever topic this is, whether it's asking questions, whether it's working with dissertators, whether it's kind of navigating multilingual situations, to basically say, okay, if you had 3 different consultations and each one had a different expectation, do you as the consultant, and I love the way you frame that of like tailoring yourself, can you tailor yourself to 3 different types of students in one day? Because I think that's a huge skill. And I think that's something that watching you develop and watching your peers in the center develop and kind of get better at that is such a fun thing for me as a supervisor, because, I think a lot of the stuff we do at the center is really important. I think the most important thing is training you to be more adaptable. And because that's going to take you so far, no matter what you do in life. I mean, I hope that's true. I hope you agree.
I do.
Hell yeah. So I think one final thing we want to talk about in terms of the training is that, yes, we do a lot of kind of big training sessions for consultants. We do ongoing training kind of in what we call consultant development groups. But with the GAs, there's now an expectation for a research project. So can you talk a little bit more about how you've been approaching that project, how that feels like training, or does it just feel like busy work? Hopefully not.
So as a graduate writing consultant in the Wingspan, at the start of this year, at the start of the academic year, I was given a research project. And, we actually had a couple of options. We could have chosen to do a presentation. We could have chosen to do a published article. And I think I even read a podcast was in there and things of that nature. And since I'm doing a PhD and I like good old research, I chose to do a research article. And at the start, I honestly obviously was looking at it as, I need to regroup myself, get organized. This is extra work coming. But now what I'm looking at is this is actually a fun journey and a fun addition that's been added to my writing center responsibilities because it helps me out so much. I mean, I'm a PhD student. Research is going to be a huge part of my life for the next 4 to 5 years, or even for the rest of my life, if I venture into academia and remain in academia. And this is a start. I get to frame my proposal. I get to do planning. I get to look at sources, write down an annotated bibliography, present in front of my graduate writing consultants in preparation of what I'm going to write about, and the main thing that comes along with a research paper, I get to conduct research and collect data, and being organized and spanning that throughout the year is challenging. I'm not going to say that is easy and doesn't take up time, because it does take up time. But learning those tools to plan and manage better and get complete certain phases and parts of the project as the year moves ahead
Yeah.
has been a blessing in disguise because I'm learning, I'm producing, and I'm achieving small goals. And I have a very interesting topic. Being from a TESOL background or teaching English to speakers of other language background, I chose to go and look into the translingual practices of graduate writing consultants.
Yeah.
And we have a wonderful student body, employee body of people from different backgrounds, and investigating and researching how they use their mother tongue compared to the target language, the dominant language of English in talking with other consultants, and how they switch between the two language, and how the language functions in terms of specific terminologies and the dialect and diction and all these different types of things. I think is very interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm getting good research out of it. I'm learning quite a bit in my field. I'm getting prepared for my a PhD dissertation, which is the largest project I will ever do. And I think you can agree on this because you have a PhD. And so I think that's so far so good.
Yeah.
But let's see how much more I can accomplish with this project.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do. I'm happy to hear that this project is something that is bringing you joy, even if you are seeing kind of the challenges of just doing research. I want these projects to be something that is at some level a value add, because I know that research in any capacity can be stressful, and it can be something that takes up, a lot of your mental energy and a lot of your time. But thankfully, and this is true of a lot of the work that we do, and we'll talk about kind of the day-to-day in just a bit, but, you're not always working with students. Like there are shifts where, you've got one student and then you've got a couple of hours to focus on the research project. So I kind of, as I plan out schedules, as I'm looking at the semester, I'm trying to make sure that I'm at least balancing the amount of time and space that you all have to actually work on these projects with the actual writing consulting work that you're doing.
Right.
Because otherwise it would be too much of an ask. If you were booked every single week with consultations, there would be no time to work on this. Yeah, to work on those projects. But thankfully, we do have a little bit of flexibility in our schedules, and we try to make sure that you have some dedicated admin time to work on those projects, and that, like we said earlier with shadowing and shadowing with consultations, that it is the best way to learn is by doing. And so by doing a research project, you are learning to do it. But yeah. So let's get into kind of the day-to-day. We've talked about hiring, we've talked about training, which, those are clearly like bleeding into and hoping to build into the working that we do, the actual kind of day-to-day. But yeah, let's think about the day-to-day in terms of what your experiences are. So I can talk about what the ideals would be, but I'm not on the ground. I'm not doing the work right now.
Yeah. So when you mentioned day-to-day, the weekly schedules that work with my classes, an important part of being a graduate writing consultant is learning how to handle uncomfortable or sensitive moments in a session. So sometimes the students bring writing topics that can be emotionally heavy or controversial, or a personal opinion or advice is hard to implement. Other times it can come from miscommunication or confusion on the student's part about their topic, or their outline. What I have learned through my consultations, my experiences being a writing consultant last semester, is that our job is to, stay calm and stay flexible and be able to tackle any student writing goals. We as writing consultants are contributors and collaborators and are not there to judge, but provide growth and specific type of improvement. I've had sessions where the topics, really challenged me personally. Because there's a large student body, there's graduates and undergraduate students. It's a research heavy, intensive university, and a lot is expected from the students. So they come in with so interesting but such challenging and controversial topics as well. And in those moments, the strategy is simple. Focus on the writing. I might say, let's work on strengthening how you present your argument. And instead of stating whether I agree or disagree with why they chose that topic. If a session becomes too emotional or drifts away from writing, I remind myself that it's time to gently redirect back to the purpose and the topic in hand and what our goal is from the start of the session.
Yeah.
Something like, I hear what you're saying. Let's look at how to express that clearly in your paper. Shows what we call empathy without losing your focus on the direct goal.
Yeah. A lot of, I think that we're never going to be able to train consultants to handle everything perfectly, but I do think that, the best kinds of consultations are the ones where students feel like they are being heard and feel like the support and the attention is focused on them.
Right.
So, I think you're absolutely right that we don't, we want them to, we kind of want them to kind of sit with some of those emotions. Writing is hard. Being a student is hard. Thinking critically about the world is hard. But there are specific things we can do. There are specific ways that we can phrase or convey the big ideas that we have or the big emotions that we have. And like the writing consultant can kind of help you gently return back to the practical or the action-based move, as opposed to kind of sitting with that, those big emotions. So absolutely. Like, I think a lot of the work we do can get very heavy, and is often, it's bigger than either the student or you, like, to be honest. But we also have a lot of consultations that are just like, hell yeah, let's talk about writing. Let's have a good time. Let's have we're going to ask good questions. We're going to get you thinking. And we want students to kind of be like, okay, yeah, I have the ability to work on this paper and to make the changes that I need. I talk with so many graduate students who, they really do just want to be heard. And I think there are a lot of great advisors on campus who will work directly with you and give you good feedback. But a lot of advisors are very busy. And so sometimes the best feedback you're going to get is from us.
Yeah.
Like, really.
We're always there.
Yeah. Not to toot our horn that loudly, but we're definitely really good at giving feedback.
I just really love it when we get these stream of students from a specific department once in a while, and suddenly astronomy is showing up. Suddenly, chemical engineering is showing up in terms of papers, and the African American history classes, and astrology classes, and then you get a series of paper. And by the time I'm done consulting my lovely students with these papers, I have actually started becoming an expert in their field, and there's so much to learn as well from being a writing consultant.
Yeah, I mean that's why I continue. That's why I continued this career. Is that like I love learning, and I feel like the best way to learn is by reading literally everything. So what better way to read everything than to work with students who are writing everything from astronomy to chemical engineering. I once worked with a student who was working on like differential math equations, and that was a wild consultation.
Wow.
Because I really did feel like an infant. I was like, so can you explain what I'm looking at?
Really?
Well, yeah, because I'm, I have a lot of skills. Math is not one of them.
Actually, that reminds me, I met someone a Kansas University student when I was exercising in the gym. And then I told that student I was working in the writing center. She was really excited about my job prospects and what I was doing. And then I even offered some assistance, saying if you ever have a project or an essay, you can always, pop by and we'll give you help. And then she actually said in her degree program, and maybe I shouldn't name this degree program, but in her degree program, they're not allowed to get additional outside help.
Oh, no.
Other than asking the professor.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you have these departments like engineering that just doesn't require writing. And then you have these other departments and field of studies where you're not actually even allowed to ask for additional help. So I hope maybe we can get to them one day.
Yeah.
But for now, I can just offer help.
We can talk about that off mic. We don't have to reveal what department this is, but I do think that there's been this interesting, higher ed's changed a lot over the past 50 years, but there are departments that are, we're not doing as much writing pedagogy for a long time that have kind of shifted back towards writing pedagogy. Writing across a curriculum programs are kind of an example of this, where engineering programs are like, we never really talk about writing in our classes, but a lot of engineers write. That's kind of the career path they take. So not, they write like technical instructions. They're not writing fiction or novels, but like writing pedagogy is kind of almost coming back in vogue. Now with AI, I'm kind of worried that it's going to shift back towards, we don't need to teach this because they're just probably going to be using these programs to help them navigate those documents. But, I also think as a center on campus, we can do a good job of reaching out to departments and saying, like, here's how we can support your students specifically.
Absolutely.
I guess, tell me what you like. This is a loaded question. Tell me what you like about working at the center.
I've always been kind of a maintaining my routine type of guy. So I cherish my routine.
Nice.
Wherever I'm dedicating my energy, my focus, my time to, I try to do my best of my ability to take that seriously. Sometimes it becomes too much where I have to, calm myself down and say, Aadi, it's okay. You're doing well. Let's just, give yourself a break.
Yeah.
And then some days where you're also, slacking here and there. But consistently, what I like about the Writing Center is that I get to help other students out and provide some sort of satisfaction and a smile to their face by the time they're done with a session with me.
Yeah.
Some days that goes well. Some days that could be better. And then some days you're kind of like, okay, let's maybe move on from this session.
Yeah.
And then I think that's all normal and part of the game. It honestly is part of being an adult and having a job. Yeah. And it's what keeps us alive, running emotions here and there, going from one thing to another, having a research project, having consultations, having these wonderful, consultant development groups where we're learning about the Writing Center pedagogy and how to become a better tutor, or our graduate development groups where we're just learning about graduate life and how to actively participate and be a better student and with the projects and the challenges ahead. I think I just like the overall purpose of what is required from the job, and always loving the behind the scenes picture that's happening, hanging out in the lounge, talking about our consultations with each other, motivating each other, helping each other out emotionally, asking each other, how are things going, asking the higher ups, the people who are in charge of a position that's more senior than you, asking them for help and their guidance, or to explore their perspective on what I'm doing, if it's right or wrong. And certain times it's challenging to hear someone say, hey, you should do this instead of this. But at the end of the day, that's always help.
Yeah.
And that improves you as a person.
Yeah.
And then you learn a skill, and you just become a better writing consultant.
I think that our office, like I've worked at a few writing centers, and you have as well at this point. I think that writing centers have always been a phenomenally welcoming space. Like I feel like the reason I gravitate towards this type of work is it is a place and a group of people that allows me to like really grow in real time. Like I feel like if I make a mistake, somebody is going to kindly tell me I made a mistake and then help me navigate what to do moving forward. And I've been at the KU Writing Center for now almost 5 years. Exciting for me. And I feel like every single year I have grown as a person, I've grown as a supervisor, I've grown as a professional. And I don't know if maybe hindsight's 2020, grass is greener on the other side. Maybe I would have been able to do that in a different office, but I feel like our team is special. And I feel like all the consultants I work with really kind of at some level bring out the best in me, and like we help each other bring out the best in each other. So I feel like it's a very special place on campus. I know there are very good teams. Like KU is a really cool institution. There are a lot of really like wonderful people who work here. But I feel like we've got a special little spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a special spot of support, special spot of connection,
Yeah.
special spot of growing together. I know that my PhD journey is going to be in the least just a long journey.
Yeah.
And it's going to have its ups and downs. And to be able to work and navigate a writing center job and my coursework and the PhD requirements, I think has balanced out really well.
Cool.
Besides this, I would have probably be working in my department, but now I have two separate experiences. One is the writing center world, and one is my courses and my department work and my dissertation and all that planning. And to just put one world aside and focus on one world, that's also kind of fun.
Yeah. There's a lot of value in kind of diversifying your graduate experiences that way. I know a lot of grad students who, for better or for worse, spend all their time in their department.
Right.
And there's a lot of value in that. You get really embedded in your department culture and those communities. But sometimes it's good to have a different experience.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
A refreshing experience.
All right. Well, I think we have done it. I think we've covered the key points of being a writing consultant, of getting this job, training for this job, and doing the good work. So we are going to close out our conversation for today. This is our first episode of the spring semester, so we're going to have at least one more this term. We'll figure out when that's going to be and kind of what our next topic for you all, our wonderful listeners, will be. But in the meantime, as always, thank you for listening and happy writing.
Happy writing. I hope you apply for this job.
Yes, please. Okay. Thank you. Bye.